Jack Miller wiped the grease from his hands onto an old rag and squinted at the engine part he had just fixed. Working as a mechanic in rural Ohio had never been exciting, but it paid the bills. At 32 years old, Jack had settled into Fung, a quiet life of fixing cars and drinking beers with friends on Friday nights. His small apartment above the garage where he worked was nothing special, but it was home. The strange letter had arrived 3 days ago. At first, Jack thought it was a joke. The envelope had weird symbols alongside the English address, and the paper felt odd, almost like fabric, but smoother than silk. The message was brief. Jack needed to report to the Galactic Confederacy Embassy in New York, something about an inheritance. They must have the wrong guy, Jack had told his boss, Frank. Only one way to find out, Frank had replied with a shrug. Take the week off. Not like we're swamped with work anyway. Now, sitting on the high-speed train to New York, Jack stared out the window and thought back to that strange night 6 years ago. The night when humans had officially met aliens for the first time. Jack hadn't been important enough to be invited to the big ceremony. He had been working security at the hotel where many of the alien visitors were staying. The company had hired extra staff for the historic event, and the money was too good to pass up. He remembered the strange blue alien who had been choking on some food. Without thinking, Jack had rushed over and performed the Heimlich maneuver. It had worked somehow, despite the alien's unusual anatomy. The elderly alien had thanked Jack in perfect English and given him a small medal as a token of gratitude. Jack had kept the medal in his drawer at home, a strange souvenir from an even stranger night. The New York Galactic Embassy was a massive structure that seemed to defy gravity. Parts of it floated in the air with no visible support. Jack felt small and out of place as he approached the entrance, wearing the only suit he owned, the one he had bought for his cousin's wedding 4 years ago. Jack Miller, here to see Ambassador Chun, he told the security guard, who was human but wore a uniform with the same strange symbols Jack had seen on the letter. The guard checked something on his screen. Yes, Mr. Miller, they're expecting you. Please follow the blue line on the floor. The blue line led Jack through hallways filled with creatures of all shapes and sizes. Some looked almost human, except for their unusual skin colors or extra limbs. Others were so alien that Jack couldn't even guess which end was the front. The line ended at a large door made of some kind of metal that shifted colors like oil and water. It slid open as Jack approached. Inside, a group of beings stood around a large table. Most were aliens, but Jack recognized the human Ambassador Chun from news reports. She was speaking with a tall, insect-like alien whose exoskeleton gleamed under the lights. Ah, Mr. Miller, Ambassador Chun said, noticing Jack. Thank you for coming. Please join us. As Jack approached the table, he noticed several of the aliens turning to look at him. Some made sounds that his translator earpiece rendered as snickers or scoffs. Is this truly the one? Asked a purple-skinned alien with 4 arms. The human who is to be guardian to Princess Vexillara? Surely this is a joke. The wishes of Elder Zexamar were clear, said the insect-like alien in a clicking voice. This human saved his life, and as per our customs, he has named him heir to his most precious responsibility. Ambassador Chun pulled Jack aside, speaking in a low voice. Mr. Miller, I need to explain something quickly. The alien you saved 6 years ago was Elder Zexamar, one of the most respected leaders of the Zarkonian Empire. He died last month, and in his will, he named you as the guardian of his granddaughter, Princess Vexillara. Jack blinked. Guardian? Like I'd be responsible for her? I don't know anything about raising an alien princess. It's more complicated than that, Chun said, looking uncomfortable. The thing is, Princess Vexillara is, by Zarkonian standards, she's considered, well, deformed, ugly. Ugly? Jack repeated. Zarkonians value perfect symmetry above all else. The princess was born with genetic anomalies that make her asymmetrical. In their culture, it's seen as a terrible misfortune. No Zarkonian noble family would accept guardianship of her after her grandfather's death. Some think the elder named you as a final insult to those who rejected her. Jack frowned. So they're laughing because they think I got stuck with someone. They consider ugly? Essentially, yes. The inheritance includes guardianship of the princess, a small estate on the Zarkonian homeworld, and a starship. You can decline, of course. No one expects a human to accept such a responsibility. Jack thought about it for a moment. He didn't know anything about being a guardian to an alien princess, but he remembered the kindness in the old alien's eyes when he had given Jack that medal. And something about the way these other aliens were snickering made his blood boil. I'd like to meet her first, Jack said firmly. Ambassador Chun looked surprised but nodded. Of course, this way. She led Jack through another doorway into a smaller room. Standing by a window that looked out over New York City was a figure draped in shimmering fabric. As the figure turned, Jack got his first look at Princess Vexillara. She was about Jack's height, with iridescent scales covering her body. Her face had 6 eyes arranged in an asymmetrical pattern 3 on one side, spaced differently than the 3 on the other. Her limbs were of slightly different lengths, giving her a somewhat lopsided appearance. But what struck Jack most was the intelligence in those eyes and the quiet dignity with which she held herself. Princess Vexillara, this is Jack Miller, Ambassador Chun said. The human your grandfather named as your guardian. The princess studied Jack for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was melodic, but with an undertone that reminded Jack of a cello. You are the one who saved my grandfather when he was choking, she said. He spoke of you often. He said you acted without hesitation to help someone different from yourself. Jack shrugged, suddenly feeling self-conscious. Anyone would have done the same. No, Vexillara said. They would not. I have observed that many beings help only those who are like themselves. She tilted her head, causing light to play across her scales in a rainbow pattern. You have come to reject the guardianship, I assume? To laugh at the old alien's final joke? Jack thought about his life back in Ohio. The same routine day after day. The apartments above the garage, the Friday night beers. Then he looked at this princess, who had lost her only protector in a world that scorned her for how she looked. Actually, Jack said, surprising himself with his decision, I'm here to accept. The princess's 6 eyes widened slightly, the only indication of her shock. From the doorway, Ambassador Chun made a choking sound. Mr. Miller, perhaps you should take some time to consider. I've considered it, Jack said firmly. Her grandfather trusted me with this responsibility. I won't let him down. As they walked back into the main room, Jack noticed the smirks and stares from the assembled aliens. A blue-skinned diplomat whispered something to his neighbor, who responded with what Jack's translator interpreted as a laugh. Jack straightened his shoulders and stood, tall beside Princess Vexillara. Let them laugh now, he thought. Something told him this was just the beginning of a much bigger story. The ship called Stardancer was not large or fancy, but to Jack it was the most amazing thing he had ever seen. It had been part of his inheritance from Elders Eximar, along with guardianship of Princess Vexillara and a small estate on the Zarkonian homeworld. This is really ours? Jack asked as he walked around the ship in the docking bay. The metal hull gleamed under the lights, showing swirling patterns that reminded Jack of fingerprints. It was my grandfather's personal transport, Vexillara said. She stood a few feet away, watching Jack with her 6 eyes. It is modest by Zarkonian standards, Jack laughed. Well, it's a spaceship, so it's pretty impressive by human standards. 3 days had passed since the ceremony where Jack had officially accepted guardianship of the princess. Those days had been filled with rushed lessons about Zarkonian culture, basic spaceflight, and how to use the translator that had been surgically implanted behind his ear. It was a lot to take in, not now. It was time to leave Earth. Jack had packed his few belongings in a single duffel bag. Saying goodbye to Frank and his small apartment had been easier than he expected. Maybe he had been ready for a change without knowing it. Inside the ship, Jack found the control room. It was smaller than he had imagined, with 3 chairs facing a curved wall of displays. The controls were a mix of touch screens, physical buttons, and some strange interfaces that looked like they responded to thought. "Can you fly this thing?" Jack asked. "Yes," Vexillara replied. "My grandfather taught me." She moved to the central chair and sat down. Her asymmetrical fingers danced across the controls with practiced ease. The displays lit up, showing status reports and navigation maps. One screen showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy with a small blue dot marking their current location. "Near Earth. Where are we going first?" Jack asked, taking one of the other seats. "To the Zarkonian homeworld," Vexillara said without looking at him. "To claim my grandfather's estate and settle his affairs." The ship hummed to life around them. Jack felt a slight vibration through the floor as the engines powered up. Stardancer requesting permission to depart, Vexillara said into a communication device. A human voice responded, "Permission granted, Stardancer. You are cleared for launch. Safe travels." Jack gripped the arms of his chair as the ship rose smoothly from the docking bay. Through the front viewport, he watched as Earth fell away beneath them. The blue and white planet grew smaller until it was just another bright point in the vast darkness of space. "Preparing for jump to FTL," Vexillara announced. "Faster than light. Travel may cause some discomfort for first-time human travelers." Before Jack could ask what kind of discomfort, the stars outside stretched into lines of light, and his stomach lurched. For a brief moment, he felt like he was being pulled in all directions at once. Then the feeling passed, and the viewport showed only the swirling patterns of FTL space. "That wasn't so bad," Jack said, trying to sound casual. Vex single quotes, LARA, sound that the translator interpreted as a short laugh. It was the first time Jack had heard her express anything close to amusement. "We will be in FTL for 3 days," she said. "That will give us time for you to learn more about your new role." Over. The next few days, Jack learned that being a guardian to a Zarkonian princess was more complicated than he had imagined. There were rules of etiquette, political considerations, and historical grudges that went back centuries. Vexillara explained it all in a cool, detached voice, as if reading from a textbook. "You're not what I expected," Jack said on the 3rd day as they shared a meal in the ship's small dining area. Vexillara paused, a piece of blue fruit halfway to her mouth. "What did you expect?" Jack shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe someone more princess-like? You know, demanding or spoiled or something." "I am not a human princess from your fairy tales," Vexillara said, "and I have had little opportunity to be spoiled. My appearance has made me an outcast among my own people." "About that," Jack said carefully, "Ambassador Chun told me that Zarkonians consider you ugly because you're not symmetrical. But honestly, I don't see it that way." All 6 of Vexilara's eyes focused on him with sudden intensity. "You are lying to be kind." "No, I'm serious," Jack insisted. "Humans aren't so hung up on symmetry. We find all sorts of things beautiful. And anyway, what matters is who you are, not how you look." Vexillara was silent for a long moment. "My grandfather said something similar. He said that humans have a different way of seeing the universe. That is why he chose you." Before Jack could respond, an alarm blared through the ship. Red lights flashed on the control panels. "What's happening?" Jack asked as they rushed to the control room. Vex Alara slid into her chair and checked the displays. We are receiving a distress signal. A ship nearby has suffered a catastrophic engine failure. On the main screen, Jack saw a large vessel drifting in space. Parts of its hull were blackened, and debris floated around it. Can we help them? Jack asked. Vexalara hesitated. It would be safer to continue our journey. We don't know who they are, or if this is a trap. Jack looked at the damaged ship on the screen. If they need help, we have to try. That is a very human response, Vexalara said. But she was already adjusting their course. The Stardancer dropped out of FTL space near the damaged vessel. Now, they could see that it was much larger than their ship, with a design Jack had never seen before. It is a Tralaxian refugee transport, Vexalara explained. They are fleeing from a disaster on one of their colony worlds. She opened a communication channel. This is the Zarkonian vessel Stardancer. We have received your distress call. How can we assist? A voice crackled over the speakers, sounding tired but relieved. Stardancer, this is Captain Zor of the Tralaxian ship Horizon. Our main engine has failed, and our life support systems are failing. We have 300 refugees on board, including children. Jack leaned forward. Can we bring them aboard our ship? Vexalara shook her head. Our ship is too small. But perhaps we can help repair theirs. She turned to the communication channel. Captain Zor, we will dock with your ship. I have a human engineer who might be able to help. Jack raised his eyebrows. Engineer? I'm just a car mechanic. Vexalara's eyes seemed to sparkle with something that might have been hope. My grandfather believed humans have a unique way of solving problems. Let's see if he was right. As the Stardancer moved alongside the massive Tralaxian ship, Jack felt a mix of fear and excitement. He was just a mechanic from Ohio, about to try fixing an alien spaceship, but something told him this was exactly where he was meant to be. The Tralaxian ship was in worse shape than it had looked from the outside. Jack followed Captain Zor through dim corridors where emergency lights cast eerie shadows. The air smelled strange, like burnt metal and something sweet. Our engine core overheated after we hit a debris field, Captain Zor explained. The Tralaxian was shorter than Jack, with gray skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. His 4 eyes were set in a diamond pattern on his face. We managed to shut it down before it exploded, but the damage was severe. Vexalara walked beside Jack, her 6 eyes taking in everything. She had been quiet since they boarded the refugee ship, but Jack could sense her unease. They reached the engine room, where several Tralaxians were working frantically on a massive piece of machinery. Jack had never seen anything like it before, but he recognized the desperation of engineers, trying to fix something before time ran out. This is the main cooling system, Captain Zor said, pointing to a damaged section. Without it, we cannot restart the engines. Our engineers have tried everything, but the materials we need for proper repairs are not available. Jack studied the system. It reminded him of the cooling system in a car, just much bigger and more complex. What if we bypass this section entirely? He suggested. Create a new cooling loop that goes around the damaged parts. The Tralaxian engineers looked at each other doubtfully. That would require reconfiguring the entire system, one of them said. The pressure would be unstable. Not if we add a pressure regulator here, Jack said, pointing to a spot on the schematics they had pulled up. We could use parts from your backup systems. It won't be pretty, but it might work long enough to get you to a proper repair station. Captain Zor considered this. Our methods are very precise. We do not typically approve of ... improvisation. Sometimes, improvisation is all you have, Jack said with a shrug. It's worth a try, isn't it? After some discussion, the Tralaxian engineers agreed to let Jack try his idea. For the next several hours, Jack worked alongside them, modifying the cooling system in ways that clearly made them nervous. He used tools he had never seen before, following his instincts and the basic principles of mechanics that he had learned. Fixing cars back on Earth. Vexillara watched from nearby, occasionally translating technical terms that Jack's implant couldn't handle. There was a new expression on her face, something like curiosity or wonder. "Your approach is very different from theirs," she said quietly. At one point, Jack wiped sweat from his forehead. "Is that good or bad?" "It is neither. It is simply different. My grandfather believed that different perspectives were valuable. That is rare among my people." Finally, the makeshift repair was complete. The Tralaxian engineers stepped back, their expressions unreadable to Jack. "Ready to test it?" Jack asked. Captain Zor nodded. "Begin the startup sequence." Everyone held their breath as the engine slowly came to life. There was a moment when the whole ship seemed to shudder, and Jack feared his repair had failed. Then the lights brightened, and a steady hum filled the engine room. "It works!" one of the engineers exclaimed, checking the displays. "The cooling system is functioning at 83% efficiency. That is sufficient to reach the nearest space station." Captain Zor turned to Jack. "We are in your debt, human. You have saved 300 lives today." Jack felt his face grow warm. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Vexillara said, "not anyone. That is what my grandfather saw in you." After ensuring the repair would hold, Jack and Vexillara prepared to return to their ship. But before they left, Captain Zor approached them with another Tralaxian. "This is Zorik, our chief science officer," Captain Zor said. "He has a request." Zorik stepped forward. "I wish to join your crew temporarily. Your human approach to problem solving is ... fascinating. I would like to study it further, if you permit." Jack looked at Vexillara, surprised. "It's your ship. What do you think?" Vexillara considered for a moment. "We could use another crew member for our journey, and having a Tralaxian scientist with us might prove useful." And so, with their new crew member aboard, they departed from the refugee ship and continued their journey to the Zarkonian homeworld. What Jack didn't know was that Zarik was not just any scientist, but one of the most respected researchers among the Tralaxians. His reports on human innovation would eventually change how an entire species viewed humanity. 5 days later, they arrived at the Zarkonian homeworld. From orbit, it looked beautiful, a swirling mass of purples and blues, with 3 small moons circling it. But as they descended toward the surface, Jack felt Vexillara grow tense beside him. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I have not been home in many years," she said quietly. "My grandfather protected me from those who disapproved of my existence. Now that he is gone, I do not know what awaits me." "Well, you're not alone anymore," Jack said firmly. "You've got me now." The capital city was a collection of perfectly symmetrical towers that gleamed in the purple sunlight. Everything about Zarkonian architecture emphasized balance and geometric precision. Jack could see why a people so obsessed with symmetry would be troubled by someone like Vexillara. They landed at a small private spaceport rather than the main one. "Less chance of unwanted attention," Vexillara explained. But as they disembarked, a group of official-looking Zarkonians approached. Their bodies were perfectly symmetrical, with scales arranged in precise patterns. They all had 4 eyes, too, on each side of their faces. "Princess Vexillara," said the leader, a tall Zarkonian with silver scales. "I am Lord Kravnix, your grandfather's cousin. I see the rumors are true. You have returned with your ... human guardian." The way he said "human" made it sound like an insult. Jack stood straighter, meeting the alien's gaze. We have come to claim Elder Zexamar's estate. Vexalara said formally. Lord Krovnex made a gesture that Jack's translator didn't catch. That may be difficult. I have filed a legal challenge to the inheritance. Humans are not qualified to serve as guardians to Zarkonian royalty. The courts will surely agree with me. My grandfather's wishes were clear, Vexalara said, her voice cold. Your grandfather was old and sentimental, Kravnex replied. The council will see reason. In the meantime, you may stay at your grandfather's estate, but you cannot access his accounts or property until the matter is resolved. As Kravnex and his entourage walked away, Jack turned to Vexalara. Is he allowed to do that? Legally, yes, she said. But there is something strange about this. My grandfather was careful and precise in his planning. He would not have left such an obvious legal loophole. Zurich, who had been silent until now, spoke up. I believe we should investigate the circumstances of your grandfather's death, Princess. In my experience, when inheritance is contested so quickly, there are often other motives at play. Jack looked between the two aliens, feeling out of his depth but determined. Where do we start? We start at my grandfather's estate, Vexalara said, and we trust no one. As they made their way through the city in a hired transport, Jack couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. What had started as a strange inheritance was turning into something much more complicated and potentially dangerous. Elder Zexamar's estate sat on the edge of the capital city, a modest compound by Zarkonian. Noble standards, but still impressive to Jack. The main building was built around a central garden with strange purple plants that seemed to move slightly, even when there was no wind. My grandfather loved growing things that were not perfectly symmetrical, Vexalara explained as they walked through the garden. It was another reason he was considered eccentric. A Zarkonian servant met them at the door. Unlike the nobles Jack had seen, this one's scales were a dull gray, and he kept his eyes down. Princess Vexalara, welcome home, the servant said with a bow. I am Tix, your grandfather's house manager. He left instructions that I should continue to serve the estate if ... when you returned. Thank you, Tix, Vexalara said. This is my guardian, Jack Miller, and our associate, Zurich. Tix's eyes flicked up briefly to look at Jack, then back down. A human guardian, just as the elder said. He told me you would come. Inside, the house was comfortable but filled with strange objects that Jack guessed were either art or scientific instruments, or maybe both. Tix showed them to their rooms and promised to prepare a meal. Can we trust him? Jack asked when they were alone. Tix served my grandfather for 60 years, Vexalara said. If we cannot trust him, we can trust no one on this world. Once they had settled in, Zurich suggested they begin investigating. If Lord Krovnex is challenging the inheritance, he must have a reason beyond simple prejudice against humans. They gathered in what appeared to be Elder Zexamar's study, a room lined with data tablets and strange crystalline objects. My grandfather was a member of the Zarkonian High Council, Vexalara explained as she activated a computer terminal. He had access to classified information and was involved in diplomatic relations with other species, including humans. The official report says he died of heart failure, Zurich said, examining a document on another terminal. A common end for Zarkonians of advanced age. He was old, Vexalara admitted, but he was in good health when we last spoke, just 3 weeks before his death. Jack wandered around the room, looking at the strange objects. One caught his eye, a small medal identical to the one the elder had given him years ago. Beside it was a framed image showing a group of young Zarkonians. All had perfect symmetry, except for one, a small figure with 6 unevenly spaced eyes. Is this you? Jack asked, picking up the image. Vexalara glanced over. Yes, with my school. group, before they separated me from the others." There was a sadness in her voice that made Jack's heart ache. He set the image down carefully and continued looking around the room. On a shelf, partially hidden behind some books, Jack found a small device. It looked like a data pad, but it had an unusual symbol on it, an asymmetrical pattern that reminded him of Vexillara SI's. "What's this?" he asked, showing it to her. Vexillara eyes widened. "That is my grandfather's personal journal. It uses a special code only he and I knew based on my eye pattern." She took the device and activated it. No one else could read this. For the next hour, Vexillara read through the journal, while Jack and Zorik continued searching the study. Finally, she looked up, her scales paling to a lighter blue. "My grandfather was murdered," she said quietly. "He suspected someone was poisoning him slowly. He wrote that he discovered something dangerous, a plot within the High Council to withdraw the Zarkonian Empire from the Galactic Confederacy." "Why would they want to do that?" Jack asked. "To launch conquests against less developed worlds," Vexillara read, "including, potentially, Earth." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "So your grandfather was killed to keep this secret? And Lord KRAV single quotes next ... is likely involved," Vexillara finished. "The journal mentions a faction of extremists, led by someone high in the government. My grandfather was gathering evidence to present to the Galactic Confederacy when he realized he was being poisoned." "That explains the challenge to the inheritance," Zorik said. "They do not want you to find this evidence." "But why name me as guardian?" Jack wondered. "Why not just leave the evidence with the Galactic Confederacy directly?" "There is more," Vexillara said, still reading. "My grandfather writes about my condition, my asymmetry. He says it is not a deformity as our people believe, but a natural evolution that appears approximately once every 10 generations. She continued reading, her voice growing stronger. "Historical records show that these asymmetrical ones often became the greatest leaders and thinkers in Zarkonian history, until a ruling class emerged that saw them as threats to their power and began branding them as ugly and cursed. They turned a strength into a weakness," Zorik said thoughtfully. "A clever way to control the population." Jack moved closer to Vexillara. "Does the journal say where this evidence is hidden?" Before she could answer, they heard a crash from somewhere in the house, followed by a shout. Jack rushed to the door and opened it just as Tix came running down the hallway. "Intruders!" the servant gasped. "Armed men coming through the rear garden." "We need to leave," Jack said urgently. "Is there another way out?" Tix nodded. "Follow me." They hurried after the servant, who led them to what looked like a blank wall. Tix pressed a hidden panel, and the wall slid open to reveal a narrow passage. "Your grandfather installed this years ago," Tix explained, "for emergencies." Just as they entered the passage, they heard the sound of breaking glass and heavy footsteps in the main part of the house. "Go," Tix urged. "I will delay them." "No. Come with us," Jack insisted, but Tix shook his head. "My loyalty is to this house and to Elders XMR. Now go." The passage led them through a series of underground tunnels and eventually emerged in a busy market district of the city. The three of them kept their heads down as they moved through the crowds. "We need somewhere safe to go," Jack said. "And we need to find that evidence." "I think I know someone who might help," Vexillara said. "There is a human scholar who has been studying Zarkonian culture for several years. My grandfather mentioned her in his journal, Amy Bennett. He trusted her." "How do we find her?" Jack asked. "The University of Galactic Studies has a campus." "Here," Vexillara said. "She teaches there." They made their way to the university, a collection of symmetrical buildings that looked more like sculptures than places of learning. After asking directions, they found the department where Amy Bennett worked, the The human woman was in her office, surrounded by books and data tablets. She looked up in surprise when they entered. "Princess Vixalara? I heard rumors you had returned." But double quotes. Her eyes moved to Jack. "And you must be the human guardian. Elder Zexamar told me about his plan, but I wasn't sure if you would accept." "You knew him?" Jack asked. Amy nodded. "I've been researching Zarkonian history for 3 years. Your grandfather was one of my main sources, especially for information. About the asymmetricals." She looked at Vexalara with respect, not disgust. "He was trying to restore the truth before he died. He was murdered," Vexalara said bluntly. "And now the people who killed him are after us." Amy didn't look surprised. "I've been tracking a faction of extremists within the government. They've been systematically erasing historical records about asymmetricals and pushing for more aggressive policies." "Did my grandfather give you anything for safekeeping?" Vexalara asked. Amy hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, a data crystal. He said if anything happened to him, I should give it to you, but only when you came with your human guardian. He said that would be the sign you were ready." She went to a hidden compartment in her desk and removed a small crystal that glowed with an inner light. "This contains all the evidence he gathered about the conspiracy, including the names of those involved." Jack looked at the small crystal. "So what do we do now? Take this to the Galactic Confederacy?" "It's not that simple," Amy said grimly. "The conspirators have influence there too. We need to expose this publicly, where they can't cover it up." Zorik, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Among my people, when corruption cannot be fought through official channels, we take our case directly to the public." Jack thought for a moment. "You mean like a broadcast? Tell everyone at once?" Amy nodded slowly. "It could work. There's a planetary communication hub not far from here. With the right access codes, we could send this information to every screen on the planet and to the Galactic Confederacy simultaneously. The extremists would try to stop us," Vexalara warned. "They already are," Jack said, looking out the window where he could see figures in official uniforms approaching the building. "And I think they just found us." "We need to get out of here fast," Jack said, moving away from the window. "Is there another exit?" Amy nodded and rushed to a bookshelf, pulling a hidden lever that revealed a narrow doorway. The university was built during a time of civil unrest. Most buildings have escape routes. They slipped through the hidden door just as they heard footsteps in the corridor outside Amy's office. The passage led them down to a lower level and out through a service entrance. "The communication hub is 15 minutes from here," Amy said as they hurried through back streets. "But we'll need access codes to get inside." "I have codes," Vexalara said. "My grandfather was on the Oversight Committee for Planetary Communications." His journal contained his personal access codes. They moved quickly but carefully through the city, avoiding main streets and patrols. Jack noticed how the Zarkonians they passed stared at Vexalara, some with disgust, others with fear. It made his blood boil to see how they treated her. Communication Hub was a tall, perfectly symmetrical tower in the center of the city. Security was tight, with guards at every entrance. "We can't just walk in the front door," Jack said, studying the building from the safety of a nearby alley. "There's a maintenance entrance on the east side," Amy suggested. "Less security there." With Vexalara S access codes, they managed to enter through the maintenance door. Inside, the building was a maze of corridors and control rooms. "The main broadcast center is on the top floor," Vexalara said. "From there, we can transmit to the entire planet and to the Galactic Confederacy." They took a service elevator, trying to look like they belonged there. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He was just a mechanic from Ohio, now in the middle of an alien conspiracy that could affect entire worlds. When they reached the top floor, they found the corridor to the broadcast center blocked by 2 guards. I will distract them, Zorik volunteered. Trolaxians are often hired as technical consultants. I can claim there is a problem with the communication array. While Zorik engaged the guards in a technical discussion, the others slipped past and entered the broadcast center. Inside, technicians sat at control panels, monitoring communications across the planet. Follow my lead, Vexillara whispered. She approached the chief technician, her posture regal despite her asymmetry. I am Princess Vexillara, granddaughter of Elder Zexamar. I have an urgent security message that must be broadcast immediately. The technician looked uncertain. I would need authorization from... Here is my grandfather's authorization code, Vexillara said, showing him the code from the journal. This is a matter of planetary security. The code worked. The technician stepped aside, allowing Vexillara access to the main broadcast system. Amy quickly inserted the data crystal into a reader. We have only a few minutes before they realize what we're doing, Amy warned. Jack stood watch at the door while Vexillara prepared the broadcast. But just as she was about to begin, the door burst open. Lord Kravnix entered, flanked by armed guards. Stop them, he ordered. They are trying to disrupt planetary communications. Guards rushed forward. Jack moved to block them, using his larger human frame to his advantage. He managed to hold them off momentarily, but he was outnumbered. Hurry, he called to Vexillara. Too late, Lord Kravnix said with a cold smile. You've lost, human. You? And your ugly princess. She's not ugly, Jack said, still struggling with the guards. She's the future of your species, and you know it. That's why you're afraid of her. Lord Kravnix's smile faded. She is an aberration, a mistake of nature. No, Vexillara said, her voice suddenly strong and clear. I am evolution, as were those before me, and the people will know the truth. She pressed a final button on the console. Suddenly, every screen in the room lit up with images and data, the contents of the crystal. Jack saw records of historical asymmetricals who had led the Zarkonian people, evidence of how that history had been erased, and proof of the conspiracy to withdraw from the Galactic Confederacy and attack other worlds. Lord Kravnix lunged for the console, but it was too late. The broadcast had begun, streaming to every device on the planet and to the Galactic Confederacy headquarters. You fool, Kravnix shouted. You've doomed our plans. He pulled out a weapon and aimed it at Vexillara. Without thinking, Jack threw himself forward, tackling the Zarkonian Lord. They crashed to the floor, struggling for control of the weapon. Despite Kravnix's alien strength, Jack's human determination gave him the edge. He pinned Kravnix down, knocking the weapon from his hand. You could kill me now, Kravnix spat. End this. Jack looked into the alien's 4 hateful eyes. That's not the human way, he said. You'll face justice for what you've done. Real justice, not more violence. By now, the guards had stopped fighting, watching the broadcast with shock on their faces. The evidence was overwhelming. Their leaders had lied to them for generations, turning natural evolution into a mark of shame and plotting wars that would cost countless lives. Minutes later, representatives from the Galactic Confederacy arrived, alerted by the broadcast. They took Lord Kravnix and his conspirators into custody. The broadcast reached every corner of the planet, Amy said, checking the communication logs. And the Confederacy has received all the evidence. It's over. In the days that followed, the Zarkonian government underwent a major transformation. The conspiracy was exposed, and those involved were removed from power. Historical records were restored, revealing the true role of asymmetricals in Zarkonian history. Vexillara was asked to join the new government as a special advisor. Her unique perspective, having lived as an outcast and now being recognized for her true value, was seen as essential during this time of change. 3 months after the broadcast, Jack stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Confederacy. Representatives from dozens of worlds had gathered for a special ceremony. For your role in exposing the conspiracy and preventing potential interstellar conflict, announced the Confederacy President, we offer our deepest gratitude to Princess Vexillara, Amy Bennett, Zorik of the Trilaxians, and Jack Miller of Earth. Jack felt strange wearing formal clothes and standing before so many important beings. Many of the same aliens who had mocked him when he first accepted guardianship of the ugly princess now looked at him with respect and even admiration. After the ceremony, a Zarkonian diplomat approached Jack. "I must apologize for how we treated you and the princess," he said. "We were blinded by generations of prejudice." Jack nodded, but said nothing. The apology wasn't really for him anyway. Later, on the observation deck of the Confederacy station, Jack found Vexillara looking out at the stars. "The Trilaxians have proposed a technology exchange program with Earth," she told him. "Zorikas reports about your problem-solving abilities have impressed their science council." "That's good," Jack said, standing beside her. "Though I'm just a mechanic. There are much smarter humans they could work with." "It wasn't your knowledge they found valuable," Vexillara said. "It was your approach, your willingness to try new solutions, instead of following established patterns." She turned to face him, her 6 asymmetrical eyes gleaming in the starlight. "The Galactic Confederacy has offered me a position as ambassador. I would need a human advisor." Jack smiled. "Are you offering me a job, Princess?" "I'm offering you a partnership," she replied. "My grandfather saw something in you, something I now see as well. Humans bring a unique perspective to the galaxy. We need that perspective." Jack looked out at the stars, thinking about his small apartment above, the garage in Ohio. He had never imagined his life would take this turn, but he couldn't imagine going back now. "Partners, then," he said, holding out his hand in the human way. Vexillara placed her asymmetrical hand in his. Partners. The aliens who had once mocked the human for inheriting the ugly alien princess now watched as that same human and princess helped reshape galactic politics. Jack Miller, once a simple mechanic from Earth, had indeed had the last laugh, though he was too busy building bridges between worlds to notice or care.